You're listening to Between the Wickets. Hello everyone, starting the new year off with a very special guest, Nikhil Uttamchandani, a renowned sports journalist, cricket commentator, and analyst. Nikhil has been involved in some of the biggest tournaments as of late, both regionally and internationally, and has worked with some of the most prominent voices in the industry. Nikhil, it's a real pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thanks a lot for having me, brother. First of all, I want to credit you for the good work that you've done, seeing some of the guests that you've had on, and obviously it's an exciting time for cricket in the USA, so I think you're doing some great work.
Thank you. So let's start with a little bit about your background. You grew up in Barbados, so obviously a very rich cricketing nation and cricketing area. How did you first get involved with the sport? What were your key factors in deciding that cricket was the sport for you?
Yeah, it's funny because not a lot of my family members are big cricket fans. As you said, cricket is all over in Barbados. Basically, it's hard to not see the sport. It's definitely the national sport of the nation. But I think I had a few uncles. I had an uncle specifically who I used to spend weekends by and Christmas holidays by, and he was very big into the sport. And him just watching it and having it on, I think I took a liking to it at a young age. And then just it transitioned to playing with my friends and then playing for a cricket club and slowly increasing my love and passion for it.
Yeah, even like for me in the US, there wasn't much cricket to go around, but I kind of picked up on it, seeing my dad watch the TV. So I think it's similar for like a lot of people around the world, how they first get into it, a lot of family related ties. So obviously you were interested in cricket and you ended up becoming a sports journalist. So there are two sides to the sport. Normally everyone wants to play the game. No one really focuses on the other side. How did you get involved in sports journalism, cricket commentating, and that side of this game?
Yeah, good question. Obviously, like most other people, when I was growing up and I was about 12, 13, 14, my dream was to play cricket for the West Indies, to play international cricket. But I think when I got to maybe age 15 or 16, I started getting opportunities to commentate. It actually started at 12 when my under 13 team my club had two teams. So basically, whilst one team was not playing, the other one was. And we had a guy who was streaming the cricket at our local club. And he was just like, well, you're young, you like to talk a lot. Why don't you give this a try? So he had a mic there. And I remember it was just a very fun thing. And then I think slowly as I went through the years till about 16 is when I first realized I was getting consistent opportunities to commentate and I was having to make a decision between playing the sport and commentating the sport. They were both happening at the same time. And naturally, I think I just was gravitating more towards the commentary. I was a lot better at the commentary. And yeah, I think I committed to it, fully decided that I wanted to do it for a career, convinced my parents, and the rest is history.
I wish we had more opportunities here in the US to do some commentating. Most of our like recordings of games are just no audio, so that would also be like very interesting. We could add like an audio aspect and like so kids could also commentate while we're watching the games.
But I think, bro, to be honest, I mean, there are opportunities, right? Because cricket in the US, club cricket on weekends and stuff, from what I see in places like New York, it's always being broadcasted, which is not really something that you had when I was growing up. And I mean, for people who are interested, you could easily go to these people and ask, maybe I can hook up my headphones to the camera, or maybe I can hook up a small mic like the one you have there and do some commentary. That's how I was able to start, just doing a lot of games.
Yeah.
Sometimes doing them by myself for the entire game. But yeah, that was my big break.
That's a really good point. So when you started this, you decided that you wanted to become a sports journalist, specifically in that realm of cricket. Were there any initial challenges you faced, or how was the process of, really becoming an influential person in that area?
Yeah, there's always challenges in life, in anything that you do. I would say a big challenge for me was probably both is and was overcoming the non-player barrier. Basically, cricket commentary is an industry dominated by people who have played the game at the highest level, obviously, because they have the most credibility. So I think it was just about, and it still is about, gaining as much knowledge as possible to try to make sure that I'm able to complement those legends, those past players, and bring a different angle. I think that's a continuous challenge, trying to find different ways to be innovative and to capture an audience and to create that engagement.
For cricket specifically, there's a lot of different like niches. Like you said, a lot of former players are mainly commentators today. I think we see that like across sports and even like football, soccer. So what do you think kind of separates cricket when you look at like all the other sports? What makes cricket special to commentate about? What stands out to you?
Well, for me, it was obviously about my passion and love for it from a young age. But I did actually dabble in a few other sports. Like I did athletic, I did football locally in Barbados, a bit of basketball as well. But I just think the variables involved in cricket, the amount of different things that can impact the game in such a big way, is something that always stands out to me. Is something that always attracts me to the sport. And it's amazing because you could have guys who have played 100 test matches who maybe now have still got to learn about the game. It's continuously evolving, and I think it's one of the unique points about cricket where bats get bigger, boundaries get smaller, bowlers are changing styles. We're seeing different actions and unorthodox actions. I think it's a great facet of the game to have the continuously evolving method and sport, and I think that's what I really love about it.
Yeah, I think that's also kind of what drew me into the game. Playing here in New Jersey, where there wasn't much cricket at first, but it's starting to really pick up now. Just like all the different, there's so much that can happen in just like 1 hour of play that it's just always interesting. You never get bored. You always want to keep playing. I think that's also an interesting fact to me. So I think you've been commentating like the last 2 years for a lot of major tournaments, major games. I've seen you on TV in Major League and even in the World Cup a little bit. So in all those games, do you think you had like a special moment or something that you always remember and you're like, that was really special?
Yeah, there's a few. I think the one that jumps out to me is making my test match debut. Doing a test match. I always thought, it wouldn't be before 25 before I actually was able to do a test match because of just the prestige associated with test cricket, the amount of knowledge that you need to have to be able to commentate. And yeah, it really is the toughest format, right? For everybody and
Yeah.
every facet. So I think to do that first test match earlier this year in Trinidad was a special moment for me. That's one. I think being able to travel to South Africa, for example, last year for the first time and return this year, just to be able to travel overseas and experience a different way of life, but also to be, I remember the first day I walked into the commentary box in the first game of the SA20, and it was like AB de Villiers, Kevin Peterson, Pommy Mbangwa, Mark Nicholas, Ravi Shastri, and me. And I was like, wow, I don't belong here at all. So I think just remembering those small things, hopefully it'll stick with me forever and continue to inspire me to be great, like the people that I work with, because what they've achieved playing the game, and then obviously most of them in their commentary careers as well, it's unmatched, and it really is motivational to walk into work and see these guys and interact with them every single day.
So on that point, for seeing a lot of big people that are in the sport in the industry already, do you ever try to get advice from them or try to ask them if you needed anything like to help you grow as a commentator?
All the time. I think every single day I ask somebody a question. And I believe people often overlook, or sometimes we have questions and we don't ask them because we're scared of bothering someone, which is understandable, and it's something that I struggle with as well. But my philosophy is the only way you're going to know is by asking, even if, as people say, there's no stupid questions. So certainly I try to get their perspectives. And some of them is like a lot about what happens on the field, and then a lot of guys play a big mentorship role in my life, like Ian Bishop or Pommy and Bangwa, in terms of what happens when we pick up this mic. So yeah, I think I really am grateful to everybody. They've embraced me so much since I've entered the industry, and it's helped me grow. I don't think I would be anywhere close to where I am now if it wasn't for me asking people questions and getting information.
Yeah, I think it's just remarkable that you've, burst onto the scene like last 1, 2, 3 years, and it's just been like rapid growth for you. I've seen you on Instagram before, just, looking up cricket stuff. And I just think, especially on that side of the game, on social media and digital platforms, I think we see a lot more analyzation of cricket, not just when you turn on the TV to watch a game. So how do you think that evolution, especially like last 5, 10 years, in the sport on the digital side, how is that added to the game, and how do you think that's going to go in the next 5, 10 years?
Oh, it's significant, man. I think it's only getting bigger and bigger. People are going away from watching cricket on TV or watching anything on TV. And now you can, in 1 minute, get a complete bite sized highlights on, what's happened in a day's play or in a match. And I think that's what I'm trying to evolve with, being able to be up to the times with social media, trying to grow my profile as much as possible. I'm going to make a concerted effort in 2025 to post more content, to be more consistent, because I think that is a direction that all sports and all industries are moving into, digital. And you want to find a way to make people engaged, to entertain people. And I believe attention spans are getting smaller, and also people are spending a lot of time on their phone. So if you can capture the attention of someone consistently, I believe you're going to get their follow, you're going to get their engagement, and you probably will get, a loyalty from a fan perspective. So it's definitely a big goal of mine.
Yeah, it also provides that flexibility. Like if you can't always watch the game, I always just go on Instagram, go on YouTube, watch someone analyze it, commentate it. So I think that's also like very important to note. So growing up here in the US, cricket has been kind of evolving at a decent rate, and then especially in the last year we had the T20 World Cup. USA Cricket played. They had a pretty good performance, better than what people expected. And then also you had the coming of Major League. It's been 2 seasons so far, with the third one coming up. So I created this podcast, try to bring attention to cricket in the US, try to get people to learn more about the sport. So I think on that point, USA Cricket, where do you see its growth right now? Where do you think it needs to improve? And more specifically for the national team, how did you view their performance, and what do you think they can strive to do better infrastructure wise?
Yeah, I think obviously what they achieved at the World Cup was spectacular. To beat Pakistan, a team that have won major trophies, a team that are usually in the top five best teams in all formats, that was spectacular in itself. But even to make the Super Eights as a nation, hosting the World Cup, it did a lot for the sport. To hear guys like Derek White in the NBA talk about cricket and see it all over CNN and Yahoo and all the different platforms, it was big. I think the key now for the USA is to build on that momentum that they've created, to build on the good performances that they have done. And I know they've been doing well in the league too since the World Cup. But probably the one thing I would like to see is probably more consistency in selection. A lot of guys come in, they do well, and then for whatever reason they are, rotated, they are changed. I mean, Stuart Law is a perfect example, head coach of USA, and is no longer with them, given what he did at the World Cup. So just more consistency within the organization. I would love to see the USA play some series against the West Indies. I think that is something that the West Indies and USA can benefit from. I mean, you look at a time period like now during the Champions Trophy where neither of them are playing cricket. You can get some of those guys for the West Indies, could be, who you see as next, your academy guys playing against the USA, because they're a quality international team who can challenge the West Indies. They challenge them to some extent at the World Cup qualifiers when Gajanan Singh scored 100. Not really at the World Cup, but I do believe that they've got enough quality on paper, the USA, that they could challenge the West Indies. So I think just creating that relationship some more, but yeah, greater consistency in 2025.
Yeah, I think it's really important to keep playing games, as you noted, just to help improve your selection, make sure you know who your guys are, and also to get them playing time together as a team. Because I think a lot of the players come from different areas of the world, even not just the US. A lot of people coming from India, Pakistan. So I think it's important for everyone to also play together and to like kind of gel as a unit. You don't want to go on the field and just don't really know who your guys are. So I think that's also very important. So we talked about the evolution of USA cricket now. For the sport in general, do you see any shift in, well, obviously, like we noted earlier, attention spans are getting smaller. People are getting bored of test cricket. I mean, not me, but a lot of people don't really like to sit down and just be watching some guy defend the ball for hours. Do you think the sport of cricket is evolving, and do you think anything is going to be done to kind of address this attention span, or just how the audience are shifting towards more T20 games?
It's funny because a lot of people say, the sport is dying and Test cricket is dying. But a couple months ago, we had a period where England were playing New Zealand, West Indies were playing Bangladesh, I think Australia were playing India. I could be mistaken about that. But you had all these different Test matches going on at the same time. Sri Lanka was playing as well. I think Sri Lanka, who they were playing. But anyways, you had
Even on Boxing Day, yeah, there was like four test matches going on.
Right. So you had all these different test matches happening at different times, and people were just switching from one to the other to the other. I think that made me realize that Test cricket is very much alive. The stories that are produced from Test matches, you think about Shamar Joseph in Brisbane, you think about Nahid Rana, for example, what he's done in the Caribbean recently. Will O'Rourke from New Zealand. It's just amazing to see the people and the stories that are produced from the longer format. And I really hope it can stay around. I hope that we can get more test matches for the non-Senna countries because I do think there's value there. I mean, you only have to look at the way Sri Lanka have gone, for example, in this World Test Championship, where they had a real chance to make the final. South Africa don't play a lot of test matches, but they are in the World Test Championship final. So I would say it's well and truly alive. It's just, I guess, for there to be more backing of the format and hopefully more opportunities for the lesser teams to play more, like a West Indies to play more than six test matches, New Zealand, for example, because we saw with the West Indies and Australia, if they get it right, they can challenge the best.
Yeah, even like the last, I mean, it just finished the Border Gavaskar Trophy that just happened for around a month and a half. Like, that's the most I've seen people excited about the sport. Everyone was talking about it, everyone was watching it. And then you had New Zealand also playing, like you noted, South Africa playing. So I think the last, month, 2 months was like action packed and everyone was kind of interested in what was going on around the world. I've also seen some projections or like Div A and Div B kind of schedule for Test cricket. So that would allow more of the lower ended teams like Zimbabwe, Afghanistan, and then also Pakistan to play more Test matches, and then the higher end teams to keep playing each other and then eventually kind of get relegated in a soccer kind of fashion. So do you think that's feasible? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I would be interested to see the structure. I've heard some rumors about it, but I hope it would be a case where you may still have, teams from both tiers playing against each other because I don't think it's beneficial for cricket to have India, England, Australia playing each other and then not playing anyone else. Just because of the audience that each of those nations bring to Test cricket. You want to have the West Indies playing against an Australia, playing against England. When England come to the Caribbean, it does immense things for the revenue of the nation and the region. So I'm interested to see how it is. Let's give it some time to see what they come up with. But I do understand why they're making an effort to have more competitive test matches, the top three playing against each other more because that's really who people are watching, and the BGT was a perfect example.
Yeah, I think the top teams playing each other obviously brings in a lot of money for that series, but it's also important, like you noted, to have the smaller teams playing the bigger teams, especially when they come to their own country. So,
Right.
increase revenue, increase audience. And then also when you see West Indies going to Australia and Shamar Joseph pulling a six for on a broken toe, like those stories against big nations, those upsets, they wouldn't even come anymore. So I think it's still important to mix it up and have like a bigger nation like Australia or England or India playing those smaller nations. So I think you've come a very long way in your career in like 2 3 years with all your hard work that's paid off. What's next for you in your career? What do you have coming up? What are you excited for, and what are your ultimate goals with your career?
Yeah, thanks a lot for that, man. I think just enjoying the process, trying to enjoy each and every step of the journey. Right now, I'm in South Africa. My second season of the SA20 is one of my favorite tournaments because of the cricket loving people that are in this country, the quality that's in this country, and just everything associated with the league. So I'm really excited for that. And yeah, I think the pinnacle for me, it's a funny one because I think a World Cup final, if you commentate a World Cup final, it really means that you've done well enough, and you have created enough of an impact to be amongst the best in the world. So that's a big goal for me. But again, I don't want to think too much about that and the destination because I think if I put in the hard work and I'm able to build and continue to get better, I think that will come eventually. So just excited about the opportunity to commentate cricket, man. Every single day I show up to work is like it's a dream. Like I can't believe I have done cricket for so many years, and now you get to this level and you get to do these matches with some of the best players in the world who I idolized growing up. So I just think, regardless of the game, regardless of where it is, it's just a huge pleasure for me to be able to commentate cricket at this level.
To wrap it up, one final question. What advice do you have for, younger people watching, younger people who want to get involved in cricket commentating and sports analyst, just in general? What advice do you want to give them?
I think for young people on a whole, be brave, right? Because there's a lot of situations where you have a passion, you have a maybe a desire, something that you like, and then often, whether it's because of our parents or because of education, we almost put it on the back burner and try to focus on school. And don't get me wrong, school is very important, but I think sometimes we can be a bit braver. We can follow our passions. We can, maybe go to school for our passions, like I was had the opportunity to do. I think from that perspective, just chase your dream. Don't think it's impossible because not many other people have done it or achieved it. And for cricket commentators, I would say use this. I think the era that we've come up in now, which is a fully digital media era, I think is a huge, huge asset that must be utilized. Post on social media, use that as a way to showcase your skill and your love and your passion. Because if you are passionate about something, the world will see it in the work that you do. So be brave, and young commentators, keep going and use social media. I think it's the best way to fast track yourself and be seen.
Okay. Nikhil, thank you so much for your time. I wish you all the best in the future. And it was really great talking to you.
Thank you for having me, Ashwath. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.